Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Joes of all ages, welcome to the main event of the evening.
It's Talking Joe with Chief and Steve.
Yo, Joe! Yo, Joe! Yo, Joe!
Hey, it's me, Captain Chief, joined by you.
S-Jubs. Hey, Chiefy.
No party like this, just party. How you doing, my friend?
I don't know any of the other words to that song. It's
No.
as I say, it sails plainly over my head. But
Listen,
yeah, S Club
first-
7, that was the thing.
First up, I want to apologise to the main man, S-Jub7 himself, because even though in the UK we went through daylight savings and we changed time, we sprung forward an hour, I did not take that into consideration for this man. So for the last couple of weeks, I think, I've been doing it what I thought was 8 a.m. my time and 6 a.m. in Australia, but it's actually been 5 a.m. So I've been doing you out of an hour's sleep. And yes, apologies for that.
Sleep, who needs it, man? This is the highlight of my week. Chief, honestly, I'm going stir crazy. It's isolation mania.
Yeah. How is that going for you?
Well,
general?
I came out of the self-quarantine, sort of 14-day self-imposed stay indoors thing after the international travel, as you know. And then on day 15, I decided I was going to treat myself because our apartment overlooks the communal pool that the apartment block has. And so I was always watching people frolicking down there, enjoying their time off work. And I thought, it'd be really nice to have a swim.
Yeah.
Walked down there with my swimming costume on and my towel wrapped around my neck. The pool is closed.
Yeah, of course.
What a fantastic bit of timing. But fortunately, I just about-faced and walked straight into the ocean, which is about 5 minutes walk away. Tough gig,
Sweet.
huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
not
I've been
closed
doing
at
a few open water swims. Good for the mind, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, definitely. No, there was a thing in the UK recently, one of these, not trust me, I'm a doctor, or something like that, about how to, a couple of guys, celebrity chef Hugh Fearnley-Whittenstall and someone else were trying to get in shape, and one of the tips for toning the mind was to take a ice cold shower every day. And he said he did it for a couple of days and was like, I can't do this. And then after a week, he said, I cannot now go one day without having an ice cold shower. He said, if I don't have that, he said, I feel worse for not having it, because he basically said it, fired all those neurons in his brain and basically brought him to life. So,
Wow, sounds like the perfect remedy for being absolutely like the living dead at 5 a.m. getting ready for a podcast. I think I'll take that under advisement. Though the water here is never ice cold.
no,
Like,
of course.
it comes out of the tap lukewarm already. Welcome to Queensland, baby.
That's it. Yeah, we're
How
still
you doing, Chief?
Not gonna lie, not gonna sugarcoat it. It's a brief inside Chief's mind for you. Struggling the last kind of day and a half with kind of mentally with. I was in a chipper mood a minute ago. Now I'm bringing it down. But
No.
yeah. Basically, just a combination of things. Obviously, stuck inside and working from home, and my wife is in healthcare, as your good lady is as well. So she, when me and Evelyn had the symptoms, she had to be off for 14 days. She went back for 1 day last week, but now she's back to work full time yesterday and today. And she works in kind of a cancer drug trial clinic. So she's giving out revolutionary, frontline first case drugs to cancer patients. But now that's been taken over by COVID patients, so she's dealing with people who have it, and it was playing on my mind a lot kind of last night, the fact that in the news there were lots and lots of doctors and nurses who are dying with no previous underlying conditions. It's clearly a case of dosage levels. If the closer you are and the more contact you have, the bigger dose you get, that can be fatal, even if you haven't got underlying symptoms. And it was playing on my mind a lot, what if she gets sick, and even to the point of what if she passes away, or what if I pass away? I'm no spring chicken, and I'm sure I've got underlying symptoms I'm not aware of. And I was actually thinking, what if either of us die, and what's going to happen to Evelyn? And it was really kind of heavy stuff. And the other thing that was, I'm working from home at the moment, which I can do. I'm in the sports betting industry, but not, and I work on the retail side, so for the shops, but in the head office. So I'm helping to get the software out to the shops that all the tills and the bet stations use, and I'm able to kind of do most of my stuff from home. But at the moment, with Louise working Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm on kind of daddy daycare as well. My kid is 4, so I can't realistically juggle looking after her and pretending to work from home, because if I say yes, I'm going to work from home, then I've got to be on these conference calls. That's not fair to the kid. I don't want to stick her in front of the TV for 8 hours a day. I want her to get the interaction from daddy. And I had a couple of breakdowns today where she was in the living room playing, and I kind of just went into the kitchen and just started crying and couldn't get a grip on the fact that I see her as this bright, intelligent 4-year-old, and she's been denied the access to have interaction with peers of her same age. She could be locked inside now for months. She loves playing with me and the wife, but this is part of her development as a kid and growing into being out. She needs to be doing kid things with other kids, and it just pained me so much.
Well, Chiefy, buddy, every child at the moment is in the same boat. Developmentally, like, they're all having to deal with a very unique situation. And I think the silver lining to this is the fact that they're getting a big wallop of interaction with their parents.
Yeah.
Like, that's something to be gleaned from all this craziness. And you sent me the most heartwarming picture of the both of you wearing your sweatbands. It looked like you were going to do some exercise together. Like, she would not get that in her day-to-day. I mean, at least not the sheer sort of massive dollop that she's getting at the moment. And I don't think a child can ever get tired of that. They always want to impress their parents. You guys are kings and queens of her existence. So this is good, man. This is really, really good. I don't think you should ever be too hard on yourself. You're doing a fantastic job, man.
I said to the missus yesterday that on Monday that I had one of the best days I've ever had with the kid. It was just like start to finish. There was no crosswords, no tears, no nothing. The whole day was just playing and fun, and it was just not an eye opener because kind of ego and humbleness aside, I think I'm a good dad anyway. So we have great times all the time. But it felt really special. Maybe it was probably the climate and the time we're in that. It was just kind of the bond thing, and I don't know. I felt bad for her that like you say, that she's getting time to spend with us. But then I started thinking as well, on the other end of the spectrum, there are obviously parents out there who are all staying at home working, so it's easier to kind of juggle childcare. Maybe one parent can be looking after them while the other one works, then you do a switch for an hour and then you switch for an hour, so it's more manageable. Or maybe one of the parents is a stay-at-home mum or stay-at-home dad, so that's part of the routine anyway. But when one of them is a key worker and they have to go out of the home to work, and the other parent is there supposedly trying to work and administer childcare, it's very difficult. And I'm not sure what's going to happen with work, because I'm going to realistically say, potentially my plan is to say I'm going to take the next 10 Mondays as holiday. So use 10 days of holiday, take that off. So at least that gives me Monday to focus fully on the kid. And then on Tuesdays, I might say, well, look, you're going to get maybe 2 hours work out of me today. That's it, because the rest of the time is for the kid. And
sounds perfectly reasonable to me, man. No boss could expect more.
No, that's fine. But then I started thinking, well, look, if they think, okay, fine, we can actually manage without Chief for 1.5 days, it's 1 3/4 days. Then I'm starting thinking, well, when we come out of this in a few months' time, are they going to say, well, actually, Chief's expendable now, and then get rid of him? So then I started panicking about my job security and all that kind of stuff, and it just really, really got on top of me today. And I'm like you. This is the highlight of my week. So coming on here, I was going to say coming on here gives me a chance to kind of be free and let loose and have some fun times. And I've kind of dragged us down for about 5 minutes. So apologies, listeners, for that. But yeah, I'm ready to dig into the meat of this show and let's bounce back up.
Sounds good to me, Chief.
Yeah, okay.
But,
Listen,
anytime you want to have these kind of chats, I'm all ears, brother.
Okay,
get
good
it
stuff,
out.
Good stuff.
Don't bottle it up.
I'm as listeners will know, and as is evidenced here, I'm not one to hide my feelings. You know, I'm an open book, so I've got no problems with all that kind of stuff. So yeah, appreciate that. And anyone else is going through something similar or anything and wants to chat, then look, I'm your man. Hit me up, hit us up on the socials or the email or whatever. You know, if anyone wants to chat, I'm more than willing to lend an ear as well. Same as SJub7. So we're a family here, G.I. Joe family. But listen, I'm hungry, and I've got something to eat here, and I've got a homemade snack today.
Goodness gracious me.
Potato chips, crisps, biscuits and candy, washing them down with a whiskey or a brandy, chewy sweets, cookies, biltong and jerky, snacks running fair because we got them at our mercy. We're snackers, attackers, bad mother truckers, and we're eating all the crackers, munchers, crunchers, knockout snacks like we're heavyweight punchers. The snack police are in his house. Yes, this is basically we've ordered some regular food parcels from the local farm, and you get a mix. Normally you can pick what fruit and veg you get, but in this current scenario they say we are just going to give you seasonal stuff, which is understandable. So we got in the package this week a couple of courgettes, which I believe in the States are called zucchinis for some reason. I think it's
we
the
also
same
call
thing.
them zucchinis, I think.
Okay, but they are the same thing, am I right?
For sure, yeah.
Okay,
they're
fine.
Sort of like, crunchy,
They look a
green,
bit, they're marrowish.
vegetable.
They're like a small, thin marrowish kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't even know if marrow's a thing in the States. They call them pumpkins or anyway, whatever. I'm going on. I want to eat this thing. So they came. No one else likes them in the house except me. So I thought, what can I do with these? So I made a courgette lemon drizzle cake.
What?
Yeah, I'm going to put the recipe up on the socials. It involves 2 big, large grated courgettes / zucchinis. There's got it's a vegan one as well, so no eggs. So in place of eggs, I use flaxseed, which I soak in water, and then in place of butter, I use vegetable oil.
Chief, you're out of control,
sugar.
man. Well done.
I'm going in for it. I've already had some, so I know it's great. And the missus loved it as well, and the kid loved it.
Cake.
Yeah.
Is it sweet? Is it cake-like?
It is sweet because it has got sugar in it.
Wow.
I will tell you this now, it is a lot better warm. It's still nice now, but better warm. But I'm going to continue to munch this. What you got, sir?
Buddy, I love courgettes. I particularly love them in like a roast veg. And a good old South African braai, which is a barbecue. Here's colloquialism already. We kind of... I always put courgettes in a kind of a roast veg to accompany the meat. And speaking of meat, it's about bloody time we broke this vegan malarkey at Talking Joe, because between you and Diagnostic, the amount of meat consumed on this podcast has dropped to 0. And it's in the bloody jingle. We have jerky. So I will be sharing with you and the listeners today a very South African treat, the answer to jerky back home, which is called biltong. Now, jerky is smoked and quite dry. Biltong is like a whole cut of steak. You can also use ostrich, you can use kudu, you can use any kind of game. It's it's marinated in vinegar and spices and then air dried, which makes it very, very moist and very, very delicious. This is the go-to snack for any red-blooded South African boykie, and that would be me. Yeah, and baby. So it's going in the gullets. I like it quite wet and with the fat still on. Check the socials if you're the listener, and if you're the chief, check your WhatsApps, baby. I just sent you a picture of a board of meat.
Let's have a look at this. Look at this bad boy.
Chewy, moist, salty. It's amazing.
It's almost like pieces. So when I was at uni the second time round, I lived with a guy in the first year in halls, and he was addicted to biltong, and he had a mate in South Africa who used to send him parcels like once a week, and it was in kind of long, thin, almost like a pencil.
That would be droewors or dry sausage.
Ah, okay.
Biltong proper is like, you can basically take the entire steak, the dried steak,
Right.
slice it as thick or as thin as you like. I found an importers in China, of all places, that did really thick cut biltong, but it was still very moist, very chewy. Good stuff, man. It's the ultimate snack because it's just so. I mean, you
moreish.
cannot.
One piece is not enough.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
We
sent
keep it
you
in
a
the fridge
picture of
because of the climate here not being very favourable.
Right.
But every time I reach into the fridge, I also reach into this brown paper bag containing this meat, and out comes a handful of steak with me.
And what would be your preferred kind of marinade or flavouring, or would you not need that? Just salt and pepper?
It's pre-prepared. I mean, as it comes to you, it's already been marinated in vinegar and then herbs, which typically involve cloves and various other spices. But yeah, no, I wouldn't say I have a favorite taste other than the meat itself.
The meat taste.
I think the cow is still the king, but
Yes.
ostrich biltong is also damn good, as is kudu, springbok.
Yes.
I mean, if it bleeds, we can eat it.
Nice. Good stuff. We both had kind of varying different snacks there, but both sound good. That's actually got my mouth watering, that description of biltong. So,
Are you going to have your annual meat treat sometime soon?
I will have an annual meat treat at some point soon. Yes, you can believe that. And biltong may well feature.
Hope you can find a good one.
Listen, I said last week that we might do the 2012 annual and another issue, and due to the chief being underprepared and not reading the subsequent issue, we are just doing the 2012 annual.
Sounds great.
So it's time for Comic Talk. It's Comic Talk, baby. Chief and Steve discussing like crazy. Larry Harmer riding these bad boys, making sense of the wackiest toys. Listen as we talk about story arcs, making noise louder than Junkyard Box, talking about character motivations and all the various G.I. Joe fun locations. Now then, when I open up this front cover, it doesn't actually have a recap, I guess because the annual, even though it's in continuity, wasn't really carrying forward any direct storylines into this issue.
Yes, and I think you might have a slight problem with your bind, Chief. I know you're doing things chronologically, but in terms of the plots, it's going to become quite evident that this is pre-Billy's death, because Cobra Commander is very not concerned with that at all.
Is it mentioned, though, in here about Billy being dead or not being around?
No, but I tell you what is mentioned is this takes place shortly after Destro and the Baroness learn about Darklon. So we'll come on to that in a moment, but that kind of puts it in that window, sort of after Destro and the Baroness leave the Waxworks or the Wax Museum.
Okay.
With a burn-on to go and do something. We learn that they wind up doing absolutely nothing at all.
Yeah.
Just going back to Scotland.
This should have come potentially a few issues earlier, maybe then.
Yeah, well, you can always just flick around. I'm just being pedantic, aren't I?
That's good. That's good. You've maybe picked on something that, again, even though I read this issue about half an hour ago, I've forgotten stuff in it already. Do you
want to talk about the cover, Chief?
Yeah, I do, definitely. This is the cover. I've got the cover A, which is the fully coloured version, but you've actually got 3 versions of the same cover, effectively. You've got cover B, which is Larry Harmer's pencils, the retailer incentive cover, which is the black and white inked one by Ron Frenz and Sal Buscema, and then you've got that same cover with colours by Jay Brown. And it's a load of Crimson Guardsmen walking down the street, holding up a big Cobra flag above their head.
They've got a full goose step going on there, man.
Yeah.
Both legs absolutely pen straight.
And what is that gun that lead CG's holding?
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm the gun expert, man, but I don't actually recognize it as anything. Like, typically you'd expect to see, Cobra using Soviet bloc weapons, Warsaw Pact weapons. This ain't that. It almost looks... No, I really have no idea, man. Eagle-eyed listeners, please feel free to point that out to us.
Yeah. Them bayonets look sharp, though.
Oh, it's such a keen feature of the classic Crimson Guard's weapon.
Yeah. This is written by Larry Hama. Obviously, the three artists here, we've got Ron Friends, Ron Wagner, and Herb Trimpe. Sal Buscema's on inks, and Rachel Rosenberg's on colours. Now, there's a disgruntled ex-Crimson Guardsman who wants to get his own back at society in general, and especially people who think have wronged him or are taking jobs, etc., or don't belong here. He's, got a few isms in him, so to speak. And then we've got a couple of teams that are tracking him down. So Cobra has uncovered this Crimson Guardsman's plot, and they want to put a stop to it because they don't want their name sullied, even though their name is pretty much sullied already. And Zartan and the Dreadnoks try to become Cobra Commander's interception arm, and meanwhile you've got a team of 4 Joes who are also very interested in what this guy's doing. Yeah.
Initially interested in keeping tabs on Zartan, but I suppose it's Zartan that then kind of tips them off as to this Cobra's,
of course,
ex-Cobra's activities.
They're reconning the shack, aren't they? I do like these opening couple of pages, which gets you straight to this guy's MO. It's kind of a palpable tension going on here, where he's laid off from his job, and he gets a parking ticket, and he's not happy with the way the guy in the grocery store is, his level of English, and he goes back, he gets his TV dinner, he lives by himself, he hears news stories, whatever, and by 3 pages in, or 4 pages in, he's already gone to his closet and picking out his old Crimson Guardsman suit, and it's quite a powerful first 4 pages.
Yeah. It feels like this annual has a lot of political things to say.
Yeah.
Particularly about the shrinking middle class of the United States and their general disgruntlement with the way things are going. My question, though, Chief, speaking about this former Crimson Guardsman who is referred to as Ted, part of the Ted series.
Yeah, and I just to jump on you there, so to speak. I was only previously aware of the Fred. Is this the first introduction of the Ted?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's evident that there are very many generations of Crimson Guardsmen in different series, and I suppose they all have different requirements and fulfill different functions. What we see in the Ted series, if we can assume that this guy is typical of the rest of his brothers in arms, is he ain't white collar, which is typically the kind of the Crimson Guardsman's calling card. They all have white collar jobs, accountants, lawyers, other kind of suits.
This guy works in the steel mill or whatever.
Yeah, this guy's very much blue collar, which is an interesting departure. I'm not saying it's not valid. It's just a new facet that we're not familiar with.
Yeah,
and
I like that because it kind of also, when back in around issue 100, where Cobra Commander and the troops go into Millville and they kind of try to take over that town, and that is a blue collar working town as well. So all these guys are getting brainwashed. So we had kind of seen it before, but I like what you're saying here, and that this is the first real time where we've seen a blue collar guardsman of any kind.
I'm curious though. This Crimson Guardsman decides to take things into his own hands, which is all very fine and well, because he's kind of rebelling against the system that is thriving and alive and well in the United States. Why would an agent of Cobra go it alone? I mean, it kind of points to the fact that Cobra itself has become kind of toothless at this point, and maybe a little bit complacent. Because his first port of call would be like, "Hey, Cobra Commander, it's time to overthrow the bourgeois, elements of society. It's time to overthrow the un-American parts of society. It's time for Cobra to do its job and agitate things,
So he's obviously disillusioned with Cobra itself as well.
Which is something that the story doesn't really touch on, unfortunately. He seems to be definitely, his focus is on immigrants, it seems.
Yes,
that's the political statement that this is trying to make. And I don't want Talking Joe to ever become a political podcast, but it's a thorny issue, I think, in most societies, the perception that immigrants are good for nothing and taking local folks' jobs. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, look, it's part of the story, so obviously Larry had something to say, I guess. And I do like the bit where Mindbender is first showing Cobra Commander, we've got this footage, blah, blah, blah. and he used Cobra, a credit card we issued him, and Cobra Commander's first response is, "So what, cancel the card, send some vipers to rough him up and tell him to mind his manners." It's like a complete throwaway. And then the next thing Mindbender says is, he used the card to buy half a ton of nitrate fertiliser. He's building a bomb, a big one. Which makes it a little bit more serious. And this Ted guy, he just caps some dude. He's at a Cobra meeting, isn't he? He's got some guys together, and one guy don't want any part of it. Blam! Shoots this guy in the back of the head. Dead.
Brown bread.
That's it. Yeah.
Hey, British colloquialism. I've been listening to a lot of you and Ben, clearly. Okay, so I think I got the facts wrong. Then Scarlet and Mutt and Gung Ho are actually keeping tabs on Ted.
Well, they say...
Oh, no, sorry. Okay, it's quite convoluted. They're watching the Dreadnoks, but they've got a camera feed from Broca Beach. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, and this is the first. This is the first of the many ex machinas, or if that's how you pronounce it correctly, where like you say, they're watching the shed, and then Scarlet gets an incoming message. "I've got a commo intercept. Cobra Command in Broca Beach is sending Zartan an encrypted link. Good thing Mainframe cracked their codes last month." So,
look, at this stage, I'm surprised there are any secrets at all. I mean, the Joes know that Cobra is in Broca Beach. They also know about this Dreadnought hideout. I mean, it's very in keeping with Zartan and the Dreadnought's character to be total hermits. I mean, they should have just moved to a new location. Because, I mean, this gas station has been known to the Joes ever since way, way back. I mean, there was an issue in the original run where the Thunder Machine goes toe-to-toe against the Havoc.
Yeah, great one.
In the Everglades. And so, I mean, they've been keeping tabs on the Dreadnoughts. In fact, I think it was Mutt on that team as well.
It was,
That's when Junkyard gets chainsawed, doesn't he? Ouch.
Yep, by Buzzer. Yes. Bad times.
Yeah, so, I mean, Zartan and the Dreadnoughts should know that, like, the Joes... it's open cards at this point that the gas station is their hideout.
Yeah. And I'm right in thinking that Zartan has been dispatched by Cobra Command to silence Ted.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I guess you can understand sending Zartan out being the master of stealth and disguise, etc. But would it have rather have been someone else, do you think? A heavy-handed approach, or do you think the one-man band approach was right by Cobra Commander?
Well, since Cobra Commander no longer has Storm Shadow in his employ, I'd say Zartan is absolutely the man for the job. He was also the man for the job in killing the Hardmaster, so it seems like Zartan is Cobra Commander's go-to guy for dealing with things discreetly.
Yeah, and also I guess it was a bit of recon anyway, because they didn't know at this point in time how many guys Ted had convinced to go along with it. They had that one brief scene in the basement somewhere where there's only about 4 or 5 people, but he doesn't know if that was more wide-reaching. But we do get the answer to one question that has been plaguing me for whenever the Dreadnoks came around, for 150 issues plus, and we finally get the answer. What do the Dreadnoks need more? Chocolate-covered donuts or grape soda? We get that answer because Ripper says, "We're almost out of little chocolate-covered donuts, and what's worse, we're low on grape soda." So grape soda clearly is the number one thing for Dreadnoks.
Well, they say you can go a week without food, but a couple of hours without any kind of liquid and you're dead.
Yep.
But damn, all right. Have you always regarded those as kind of metaphors for other substances that they're abusing? Or have you taken it?
I hadn't until now.
Yeah, man, it's very cute, but I always sort of thought of it as like kiddifying the Dreadnoks.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm surprised really in the amount of reboots and alternate versions of G.I. Joe there's been through the many publishers that they weren't kind of branded as a kind of hardcore drug using cult kind of gang thing, but maybe no one wanted to publish that story.
Well, it all kind of changed for me after watching the first season of True Detective, where the guys encounter a truly scary biker gang, and they're sort of involved in all sorts of things, be it like hits or drug trade. I mean, these guys are bad dudes.
Is that the one with
and scary.
Matthew McConaughey and
Yeah.
who else
And
is it?
and Woody.
And Woody Harrelson.
Harrelson.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Dude, so good. Gee whiz.
Right, back to this one then. The guys, Ted and his buddies, they're tooled up. He's showing them all the fertiliser for the bombs he's making. Zartan is now disguised as a police officer, and he comes round to check out Ted's...
Not just any police officer. He's like a mounted police officer. He's a
like something
biker.
like Chips. Did you ever get Chips in South
We
Africa?
did,
Yeah.
but I must say my first thought when seeing a sort of a shape-shifting biker cop is the T-1000.
Ah, yeah, of course.
Say,
Yeah.
that's a nice bike.
Oh,
Mister.
shit, homework.
Oh,
And
Chiefy.
double
Every
homework.
time, buddy.
Double homework, because I haven't got Good, the Bad and the Ugly yet, but that is on the list. So by next week, I've got 2 movies to watch there. Okay.
I'm afraid Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is not a quick one, is it? I haven't
it's
actually checked the runtime, but it does take a while.
It must be 240 plus. I reckon. I don't know. I'm guessing, but I'll have a look.
Do not watch the extended version then.
Okay. We get some more scenes of Ted being disgruntled because his card's been cancelled, etc., and he's saying money grubbing immigrants. Should that be money
without
grabbing?
putting too fine a point on it.
Yeah.
Money grabbing, money grubbing. I don't know. I think money grubbing is the phrase.
Okay. There was now a scene which I don't think I understood. Zartan disguises himself as a little old lady with pink hair. Kind of Zorana-ish, I guess, an old Zorana. And why does he need this old lady? Purely for her phone. Because he needs to use her phone to call the Dreadnoks on the sterile phone, which they've got in the fridge, and to tell him to meet them at a certain place. Then he gets the old lady to drive him in the car. Is it just a super diversionary tactic? I don't really understand why he needed the old lady.
Cover, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Joes were to check their rear view mirror and just see these biddies with pink hair behind them, they'd probably think nothing of it, no matter how long they've been tailing them for.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a whole lot of weird circumstances that play into this, because the old lady says, I don't believe you really are my long... Oh, I should probably do an old lady impersonation. I don't believe you really are my long-lost identical twin sister. I think you're my evil twin. Like, she's playing into this deception. She kind of, perhaps, a little bit... what's the word? She started losing her mind a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit of Alzheimer's, perhaps, because either she has an identical twin sister or she doesn't.
Yeah,
so for
clearly
Zartan
she
to
has,
be her mirror image, she either has someone who looks like that or doesn't, and so I don't know. I don't know what's going on here.
I don't know. Maybe Larry just wanted more Zartan shapeshifting kind of thing.
Maybe he just wanted to tie it into the line talking about the devil's in the detail.
Yeah.
She says, "You must be the devil," and Zartan answers to that, "If you're implying that I live in the details, you are correct."
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was. I think you're right. It was just for that line. There's a bit as well. There's another bit of handy things happening here when Scarlet, don't they go into where Zartan's been and they say, oh, his laptop's still warm. Oh, maybe we can get the notepad and find, do the old pencil rubbing over the notepad to find out where he's
I
going.
think it's time for that word again. Deus Ex Machina.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, and they
I
pull
guess
the name of the target, I guess, or the name of Ted Bergendorf, I think.
It. I guess it gets the plot moving. Here's one, and I've been saying this for a while to myself and on previous episodes from a long time back that I was going to get together all the images of Cobra Commander in his shooting galleries, because I think there must be about 6 or 7 now, and we get a nice one here in Broca Beach where he's got looks like an AK-47, like you said, an old Soviet weapon, and he's got Scarlet, is that Duke probably, and Snake Eyes cardboard cutouts, and he's just brapping them on the shootout. And then in the end, he gets some bad news from Mindbender. Tells Zartan to make Ted and his crew go away forever, and he cuts them in half.
Nice.
That's a nice,
Yeah,
nice panels there.
When you absolutely, positively gotta kill every last MF in the room, except no substitutes.
That's
yeah,
it.
man.
That's it. Love it. I mean, it's a fast-paced storyline, and we'll talk a bit more about. But at this point in time, I want to just ask you about the art, because we have got the three artists. We got Ron Wagner, Ron Friends, and Herb Trimpe, and I think they do a good job in complementing each other, because even though you can tell where a new artist is on, they're not straying too far from each other's styles.
Chiefy, I think you are far more attuned to artist styles than I am. I honestly could not tell you when one ends and the other begins.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's
man.
good. That's good then from the story point of view.
Absolutely.
Consistency, because there's always a danger when you get books with multiple artists that the art style can be quite jarring when you go from one to another, and it can change the pacing of the story, or because each artist might do different panel layouts or do different things, so it can change the tone and the reading and the flow of the issue. But here, I think the flow was very, very good, and the art throughout the whole thing I thought was top notch.
The colours really tied together. I think in a previous book, when they chopped and changed artists, the colouring wasn't as consistent. I mean, obviously, modern colours use a variety of shading and techniques that just weren't available in the old, in the old print format.
Yes. Yeah.
So that does give it a uniformity that perhaps otherwise would have jarred.
Yeah.
But no, man, here it's all good in the hood. There are one or two art gaffes. Maybe we'll get into that.
Well, I noticed one which was near the end with Mutt with no moustache.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was it.
We'll get to that one. They do end up though in this fairground, this kind of fun fair, where Ted is going to let off his bomb, and the Joes have been choppered in their van they're in. Is this just was that just some sort of regulation? Who's picked him up there? I can't. Oh, it's Wild Bill.
Wild Bill. Yeah, using a Black Hawk again, which is unfortunate.
Yes.
I always lament opportunities missed when you could have had a G.I. Joe piece of equipment. Instead, you're using regular army equipment. Not bad. I wouldn't say the Black Hawk looks terrific. Drawing aircraft is Trimpe's specialty. So I think these weren't his pages, unfortunately. Yeah.
And Zartan, meanwhile, has hijacked an Apex air freight aircraft.
Why not?
Why not?
Set it down right there in America land.
Yeah. And then the Dreadnoks will just roll out the back. Don't worry about security. They're not about, or the police, or the army. Anyway, whatever. And another interesting thing is, when Ted and his boys rock up, they outfit themselves in the Crimson Guard outfits, and then they say, "But now I get it. We can walk anywhere we want in this park, and everybody will just think we're part of the show." What, a load of guys with Cobra sigils on their chests, with carrying guns around? What?
I kind of almost wish they'd stayed in the American president outfits.
Yeah.
Because they arrive in their... Well, there's a George Washington, an Abe Lincoln, and a Franklin Roosevelt, looks like.
Yeah, good shout.
But, I mean, hilarious if they were sort of gun-toting as former presidents with those massive heads on. Because they've got huge masks.
That's it. Yeah.
Caricatures, I should say.
Yeah. And I've just flicked a few pages forward, and then I'm on the scene now where Mutt has found the van with all the explosives in, and he's kind of leaning over the steering wheel, and he's got his lid off. We don't often see him without his helmet, but he's got his helmet off, and he has got no tash.
Oh, man. He had a quick shave, dude. It ain't
quick
Movember. I mean, it doesn't even look like Mutt without the tash. It's amazing
Correct.
what like a good old Tom Selleck moustache will do to a man's face. He looks like a child.
Yes. Yeah,
like
he does.
a teenage Billy.
Yeah, he does. He's more Billy-ish than Mutt there. But anyway, turn the page and we get a dead Crimson Guardsman floating in the drink because Buzzers said, there's a bit where he says, "Did you see that, Torch? I chainsawed out half his spine."
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So here we have, I think, the most international Cobra agents there are versus a bunch of intolerant disgruntled former Cobras who are taking out their woes on America's immigrant population. I think, isn't Buzzer from Oxford?
Buzzer is one of
Buzzer's
them.
the Brits, and the other two are the Aussies.
Possibly,
And
yes.
Zartan's, well, his current country of origin is unknown, but he could be a Frenchman. He studied, potentially studied military tactics at a French military academy called Saint Cyr.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I like that. I never knew that or put that together. So yeah, that's good, because now when I read him, I'm going to read him a little bit more Frenchy.
The question of sort of country of origin is moot. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He's a paranoid schizophrenic with these sort of multiple personality disorders, which is something that I found he's always very much more balanced in the comic book. Like, he could be a lot more unhinged.
Yeah, we don't really see that madcap kind of unhinged dueling personalities at all, do we? So.
If anything, in the company of like Cobra Commander and the Dreadnoks, he seems the sanest man in the room.
Yeah,
which
very
is
highbrow.
quite unique.
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell you what's not highbrow, and that is Mutt taking a drink in the river in this truck, because then he bonks his head on the steering wheel and he's going down, man. He's in trouble. Zartan.
I like that. Nice touch. I all of a sudden got very caught up when I mean, this is reading it for the episode. Was the first time I'd read this annual.
Okay,
it had not been on my radar previously. So all of a sudden I was like, shit, is Mutt alive in continuity at this point? Like,
yeah.
Homer could do anything. Like, it's anybody's game. And this is an annual. This is kind of a standalone special event. You know, there's some serious stakes here. So I found the quickening of the pace was unpredictable.
Yeah, because he's gone down, and then you see Ted. He's having a rant and a bit of a monologue to himself, and he's pressed that button and he's set off that explosive, and then you see the truck at the bottom, Johnson Wholesale Meats, and the beep 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 beep, boom, or thoom, and that's blown sky high. So at this point in time, you don't know if Mutt and Junkyard have been wasted or they're still alive. So, you know, a bit of tension created there. Lovely panel of gung ho at the bottom there.
Incredible. And hopefully the art kind of gets you to disengage your critical mind a little bit, because he's leveling a grenade launcher at the Dreadnoks, and very clearly in their immediate vicinity, in their sort of background, are a lot of civilians.
Yeah. And that is
directly
kind of
behind the Dreadnoks.
That is close quarters, and that is going to do some damage.
Danger close, man. Yeah, good thing the Dreadnoks don't call his bluff.
We get a little bit here, and I should have guessed this because Zartan's in the issue, but then when Scarlet confronts Ted, launches a throwing star, hits him in the head, he's silhouetted in the picture, and you see the background. There's a woman holding her face in kind of shock. There's a dude covering his eyes with his arms, because Ted has taken a throwing star, thonk straight in the head, and he is now 6 feet under. But then, of course, I should have guessed that actually wasn't Scarlet, that was Zartan all along.
That is such a ninja trope, that a throwing star to the head is an instant kill.
Yeah, because look how deep that is. That point is probably only embedded maybe an inch or two, not even that, and I don't think that's going to kill anyone.
The thickest part of the skull, isn't that the forehead?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, you should be aiming for the throat, I reckon.
Well, I don't know. I think the trope is like go for the head and it's an instant kill, like a headshot, that sort of video game logic. But I don't know, man. I don't see that putting Ted down necessarily.
Okay, well, to your point, or there's no actual confirmation that he's dead. Oh, actually, one of the guards says that's the one who killed that guy, but he could have just taken one in the head and fell down, and an onlooker could have just assumed he was dead, so he may well not be dead.
Okay, interesting.
So look out for Ted cropping up in a subsequent issue.
With a big hole in his forehead. But I did see it coming with Zartan as Scarlet.
Okay.
I must say that wasn't.
Yeah, because
I
guess we saw them encounter each other in one panel previously, and we never saw the resolution of it. So we cut to another scene, so that did suggest that something went down, and on reflection, it was him. And then you see Scarlet saying, "I should have seen that right hook coming," as the real Scarlet wakes up. Zartan makes his getaway, by clocking gung-ho, gets on the Dreadnought spikes, he's off. And then, as in standard Larry Hama fashion, it's all wrapped up in one page. Like I said, with Zartan getting off. And the last 2 panels, oh, look, it's some simulated dog rescue. Dog slobber.
Good old Junk.
Yeah.
He looks very cat-like in that second to last panel.
Too cat-like for me.
Oh, well, no worries. I mean, you sign on to do a G.I. Joe book, you do not anticipate the fact that you're going to have to draw a dog.
Yeah, so a lot of us say drawing animals, especially dogs and horses, are not the go-to. But anyway,
Chiefy, continuity-wise, where did Zartan get his bike from?
Was it his bike, or he jumps on the back of a Dreadnought's bike, doesn't he?
Yeah, but they're already a bike short. Torch is saying Ripper will have to ride on the back of my bike. So by the end of it, there are still 3 bikes. But that doesn't account for the fact that Ripper got taken off his bike. Whatever. Don't sweat the details, S-Jubs.
No. And initially,
so what if Mutt doesn't have a moustache?
Yeah. Initially, I thought, because I don't think you read this issue, but I think you might have mentioned to me offline or on a text that this could be the issue that follows where Scarlet goes to the pit, where she sees Spirit in the Quanson hut and goes down because she's kind of coming back from a mission, and it could have been this mission she was coming back from. But like you mentioned earlier today, maybe this should have been set before. Now, I didn't really pick it up going through the issue there, but what was it suggested to you, this issue, that it was kind of set where Baroness and Destro were flying off to do nothing, etc.?
It's the first scene we see Cobra Commander and Mindbender. They're in Broca Beach, they're at the Wax Museum, and it seems like, firstly, Cobra Commander isn't in mourning. He isn't obsessed with his quest for revenge against the Blue Ninjas. And there's a line that he has when he sees Mindbender saying, I have to figure out a new plan to counter what Destro and Baroness are up to about disrupting our deal with Darklon.
Yes.
Now, this must have taken place before all the kind of the G.I. Joe operation in Darklonia to apprehend Darklon, because it seems like none of this is touched on in the main series. This is kind of forgotten about. Like, Cobra Commander isn't intercepting Destro and the Baroness. The Destro and the Baroness are not concerning themselves with what happens to Darklon either.
No.
They learn that he's still alive, and they don't hightail it over to Darklonia. Instead, they just head back to Scotland and are forgotten about. So, bit of a continuity gaffe, I don't know. Maybe we can no prize our way out of it, but why bother? Why not just point and laugh?
That's it.
G.I. Joe, the convoluted continuity.
I think it's enough of a standalone issue, and that kind of reference is small enough to not wash away, but, wash away and just accept, because I don't think it has any far-reaching ramifications. But overall, I enjoyed this. I thought the art was solid, as we mentioned throughout. I thought the writing was good, with a few hiccups. I wasn't sure about the evil twin sister bit, and some of the Deus Ex Machinas were a little bit too on the nose. But overall, I had fun with this.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to give this more than a 6. The intrigue for me now, rereading it, is the fact that we finally get an insight into what Cobra veterans concern themselves with.
Yeah, that was the most interesting bit for me, and I don't think it got... Well, I suppose it did get fleshed out to an extent, because that was the whole of his spiel, the whole of his kick was about that, getting one back. But I would have liked a little bit more meat to those bones, rather than just saying, money-grubbing immigrants, and etc. I'd have liked a little bit more to it, and maybe to have tried to take a pop at Cobra instead. Maybe he felt mistreated and he was where he is because Cobra didn't have his back or didn't support him, and just a little bit more to it would have been nice.
Yeah, well, it also seems to be looking at a very sort of unsophisticated plot. This guy, he's using all this kind of Crimson Guard training and networking and whatnot, but he's still very lowbrow. And when all's said and done, it took very few G.I. Joes to intervene and put paid to his plots. yeah, what's the term that you like to use? Low rent. I mean, it's a very kind of,
Yeah.
very much more domestic story. There's
Yeah.
nothing too broad and big. It seems like Larry had some very political things to say in this issue, in which, take it or leave it. Either you're a fan of a sort of a story from the heart, or you're not.
Yeah, I think I'm
for
in the
me-
same boat as you. I did have fun with it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a one I'm going to go back to regularly, but I am going to give this 6 Yo-Jo colas.
Wow, we've lined up for the first time ever, Chief.
In sync, baby. And I'm not talking about the band. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Listen, next week we are definitely going to do 177 because you've already read it and I need to do that, and we're also going to do 178, so you've got to read one more, I've got to read 2 more. That's 177 and 178 next week. But right now I want to hear about some toys, and I clearly not going to do that, so that's down to you, pal.
Steve talks about toys, ho ho. Steve talks about G.I. Joe. He talks about all the toys from the comic book and the animated show. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys.
Boomtown. Well, given the subject of this issue being a disgruntled Crimson Guardsman, what better than to take a close look at the Crimson Guards?
Yeah, boy.
Let me just fire off some pictures to you, Chief.
Yeah, please
so
do.
You get some visual references.
So I only
Boom,
have,
boom,
as
boom,
you're doing this, I only have, and again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, I don't want to ever claim to be a G.I. Joe expert in any category at all. I'm definitely not one in toys. I am only familiar with one version, and it is the classic version.
Oh, well, why would you want anything but? When all said and done, they nailed it on the first pass. This is an exquisite figure. Really, really, really nice. And it's something that if you only look at, in the very broadest of strokes, you'll only see like a red figure. But the details, the fineries to this figure they're in a class of their own.
Yeah.
It's easy to see why this is on a lot of people's top 10s. But as always, let's begin with the file card. And there were a few variations, but for the sake of, I suppose, purity, I'm going to go with the first iteration of the file card.
Sounds good.
Because it's got some interesting points that we might touch on in our discussion. Cobra Elite Trooper, codename Crimson Guard, file name Top Secret. It doesn't say various, which you'd normally expect with an army builder. But anyway, Top Secret, I like that, adds to the secrecy of the character.
Yep.
Primary military specialty, undercover espionage. Secondary military specialty, accounting. Birthplace, various countries. Grade E4 or equivalent. The Crimson Guard are the elite shock troops of the Cobra Legions. All CGs must hold a degree in either law or accounting, as well as being in top physical condition. Final stages of training take place in the deepest recesses of Cobra headquarters, and is purported to involve an initiation ceremony too hideous for description.
Ooh.
Crimson Guardsmen are too precious to be wasted on the conventional battlefield. They are dispersed about the country in deep cover, assuming apparently normal appearances and lifestyles. Watch out, that friendly new neighbor of yours might just have a red uniform hanging in his closet.
Yeah, I
We
like that
hear
last
so-
line. That's quality.
So many interesting concepts come out of this file card. Things that were touched on in the comic book series, and things that were touched on never again.
Yeah.
By that, I'm referring to the initiation procedure.
Yeah, that sounded interesting.
Yeah, man. Like, my first thought always runs to, like, a certain form of, like, mutilation. That, like, there is no way you can not be a CG if you've agreed to have maybe the tip of your pinky toe chopped off or something like that. It's just like, if you want to, beyond all reasonable doubt, assure your allegiance to the secret cult. Because let's face it, that's what the Crimson Guards are. They are a cult within a cult. And to swear their allegiance, they've got to go through some kind of procedure. I mean, one might also reference the mandatory cosmetic surgery that they undergo.
Yeah, of course.
The Fred series all having the same face. What is your read on that? What is the function of having an interchangeable army of clones, basically?
Yeah, because it's never really, explained or taken into account, is it? It's just kind of, I remember vividly, it's some of my favourite issues where, Cobra Commander's having a rally and he introduces, doesn't he, the Fred, and he's got his briefcase and he's got his wife and his 2 kids. And he mentions there, he's got his Cobra Guardsman outfit in the closet. You never know who your neighbours are and what they're going to be doing. And it's kind of as a kid, it's kind of fun because you're like, oh, all these bad guys have all got the same face. But then you sit back and think, wait a minute, they couldn't really work too closely together in the same building or even in the same, close-knit town or village, because it's going to bring up too many questions, surely. But if they're...
Certainly in the era of facial recognition software.
Yeah,
I mean, these guys, you bust one of them, you've bust them all.
And how many are we to believe there are? I mean, they're not the day-to-day troop, but it was kind of intimated that they were almost like an upgrade from a Cobra Trooper, because I don't think when they were brought in, Vipers were a thing yet. I think we were still just Cobra Troopers. And
I think at their onset, and this is before the Ted series, which we learn of in this this annual, who's a more kind of a blue-collar Crimson Guardsman, I think would probably kind of be brought on just similar to the Iron Grenadiers, where you'd want to swell your forces very quickly. You kind of broaden the acceptance criteria. But initially, and this is something I gleaned from like a Devil's Due write-up, the Crimson Guardsmen were selected first and foremost as troopers who had degrees.
Right, okay.
So they were already graduates, which makes it interesting that the file card gives their rank as E4. Like typically, I mean, in conventional armies of the world, if you have tertiary education, if you are a graduate, you are automatically a sort of officer pay grade or higher. Yes. So these guys are enlisted men. I guess Cobra runs things slightly differently. Maybe they don't want anyone to start out, with a kind of an automatic rank. You still have to work your way up from the bottom.
Yeah.
Because essentially, like Crimson Guardsmen, in spite of their education, they still are charged with some mundane activities like guarding the Cobra Commander.
Yeah, of course. Now, listen, talk to me about this particular figure, because there's quite a lot of detailing on the figure of some nice...
Brother, they've got like a sort of a braided rope around their right. They've got shoulder pauldrons. They've got a unit patch, which is gorgeous. It's a tampo with a Cobra sigil set into a triangle and then flanked by, what are they, palm fronds?
Yeah, I think so.
Those sort of like those leaves on either side. That is a fantastic unit patch. Really, really beautiful design. Probably credited to Ron Rudat, who was the earliest designer working on Joe, and he probably coincided with the Crimson Guardsman before he left Hasbro.
Yep.
It's incredible. Just one shade of red used throughout. They would vary that in later Crimson Guard iterations, but on this one it's perfect. I'd say, while you'd mention it in the same breath as the Iron Grenadier, it has the edge on the Iron Grenadier in one specific, well, maybe two specific facets. I mean, the red is a lot more striking, but also the Iron Grenadier doesn't have the added detail of the tampos, whereas the Crimson Guard has not only that shoulder patch, as I mentioned, but the big old Cobra symbol right in the middle of the chest of his sort of battle tunic. It looks very ceremonial. It's not designed as a functional frontline dress. But that didn't stop the Crimson Guardsman from being used in that sense anyway. And we get later versions that further push it into a kind of frontline troop realm. But just to wrap up on the classic and best, as we've already mentioned, in terms of sculpted weapons, he's coming up a little bit light, but he does have what I would call a sawn-off shotgun on his left thigh, which is a nice close quarters weapon, which then would complement his included weapon, which is I think the card describe it as an AK-48, which I think is a bogus weapon, sort of made up. FormBX257 on YouTube calls it an AK-5, which is a Swedish gun. That could be possible. It certainly has the same configuration with the same straight box magazine. But what really appeals to me about this gun is that very vicious bayonet. Yeah. The toy actually has serrations on the bayonets, which is a fantastic amount of detail given the size of this weapon. It's not oversized. it is scaled perfectly, which is so nice because, I mean, so many assault rifles later on in the line started getting a little bit loose with the scaling.
Yes.
Like if you think of Leatherneck's M203 M16 combo, like that gun is a little bit too big.
Okay.
Whereas back in 85, they really nailed the scaling. And for my money, buddy, the Crimson Guards rifle is the best assault rifle ever produced in the classic line ever.
There you go.
It is
High
my
praise.
all-time favorite. Yeah.
It is a
Nothing
winner.
beats it. It is
And
beautiful.
Interesting shaped backpack as well.
So it's designed as a kind of a ceremonial pack, which looks good even when these guys are just charged with guard duty. You know, it's not a soft backpack as you would expect field operatives to have. I think the best sense of this accessory was made by the Sideshow 1:6 scale figure that they produced. So the way it's designed is that it's a hard pack. The top flips open and the front flips down to create a kind of a stand,
Okay.
like a portable battle stand, which then the CG can rearm himself or reload. It carries, I think, 4 magazines of ammunition for his primary weapon and 2 flash grenades.
Well, cool.
Very, very nice touch.
Nice.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't actually send you a picture of that.
No.
Hopefully we can grab one for the listeners and the
Definitely.
socials if they're so
Yeah, I
inclined.
had a little look at these pictures. I'm not overly keen on the colour scheme on the second dude, the grey and yellow.
So, oh my goodness, yes. Let's talk about other versions. So the immediate departure was the Python Patrol
Oh, is that what it is?
Crimson
Yeah.
Guardsman,
Yeah.
which is the most ridiculous contradiction in terms because Python Patrol Crimson Guardsman, and he's not crimson.
Yeah.
He's like yellow with an all grey face. There's no detail to the face. It's awful. It is the most maligned version of this Crimson Guardsman. Sorry, listeners, if this happens to be one of your favorite figures. There's always love for the little guy, but it just... How can you not have a Crimson Guardsman?
Yeah.
Madness.
I don't like the next one either.
Oh, yes. The next one would be the version 16.
Right.
If you've got yojo.com to hand. And the reason I shared it with you, this represents a more flexible, outfitted Crimson Guardsman. So you'll see in the image that I sent you, he's wearing like an armored vest.
Yeah.
Now that's a removable piece, which can go over his classic tunic.
Right. Okay.
But in addition to that, he comes with a saber and a scabbard, very similar to the Iron Grenadiers, but the saber is removable, so that would be a more of a honor guard, Crimson Guard. But in the same package, you get this flak jacket, or whatever you'd call it, armored vest, so he looks like a frontline troop. And add to that the fact that, and I think I sent you the image, he came with a small sheet of stickers,
Yes.
allowing you to customize your Crimson Guardsman with various kind of unit markings, one of them including the Cobra Air Force marking, which is a Cobra symbol flanked by like bat wings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool symbol.
That is quite cool. I quite like that customizable feature, but I don't like the helmet. It looks too squared off for me. Looks like someone's just put a bucket on his head.
I tell you what bugs me about it is if we're to believe that there's a human head inside this modern Crimson Guardsman helmet, then he has a very, very tall forehead. Because his eyes, if you're to believe that his eye, the view slits are where his eyes are at, like, he's got a lot of head above that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's filled with, like, communications gear, or maybe they just goofed. Because, the helmet is a bit distracting. I think they nailed it on the first pass. You and I can agree that you can't beat the original flavor, right?
That's it. Good stuff. I think I might even have one old one in my box. I'm going to have a look in a minute. But
You got it, Chief. Bro, this is a beautiful figure. Please, I hope you haven't palmed him off like you did with your Star Wars collection. I recently re-listened to that episode of Out of Timers.
Oh, dear.
Man.
Ah, look.
Oh,
there he
dear.
is. Got him.
Yay! Great.
Now then, the next question is, have I got his gun? I'm not looking for that right now. But, yeah, there he is.
True story. I found my first Crimson Guard rifle, which started my love affair with the weapon, at Dublin City Comics.
Oh, really?
I rooted around their the sort of used toy bins and found some old Joes, and I They parted with them, I think, at like €12 a pop. I was like, geez, guys, you're killing me here. But I got a couple of accessories thrown in just for gratis,
Nice.
and that was one of them.
He's got a bit of a loosey-goosey arm.
Nothing wrong with that, buddy. I'd rather have loose joints at this stage than tight joints, because the plastic being the age that it is, it's prone to cracking. So, yeah, man. Rather have buttery loose joints than stiff ones.
Means he's been played with as well, which is good.
Chief, there's a parallel I want to draw before we rule a line in the sand and call it a day on the Crimson Guard.
Yeah, do it.
These guys are Cobra Commander's inner circle. You know, there's been a tenuous link drawn between them and obviously the Crimson Twins, Termax and Zaymot. I would say that they are commanders of the Crimson Guard in function only.
Yes.
Like, they have accounting backgrounds, law backgrounds. They're the money makers of the Cobra Legions. So they're concluding high-end business deals in society by day and donning the Crimson Garb by night and going to the sort of cult meetings. But their ultimate allegiance is to Cobra Commander.
Yeah.
You know, when Cobra Commander came back from the dead, it was the Crimson Guard that unearthed him. So it's beyond doubt that the CGs are his private army within an army. And in that sense, they are a lot like the Schustaffel of the Nazis.
Yeah.
The SS. These guys exist outside of the regular army. They are definitely their own thing. They work with the Wehrmacht or the Cobra army, but they are definitely like something else.
Yep.
And their very, very crisp uniforms are the initial visual cue. Because, I mean, the SS always seem to have that, like, black garb, always portrayed in the media very immaculately. So I think at the outset, that was what the toy designers were trying to channel with the Crimson Guards.
Yeah, and you even mentioned on the cover of the annual that we covered today, they're kind of goose-stepping on that front cover.
Big time, big time.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, their function as Crimson Guardsmen is chiefly the protection of Cobra Commander. Something that I also want to raise, and this is pertinent to the comic book specifically. I mentioned that, when Cobra Commander came back from the dead, it was the Crimson Guardsmen who were his immediate allies.
Yes, yep.
And helped him overthrow sort of the Cobra usurpers. What is intriguing is that in the Cobra Civil War, the Crimson Guardsmen swore allegiance to Serpentor.
Ah, yes, of course.
So my theory is they knew that Fred 7 was standing in for Cobra Commander. They somehow, they'd worked this out within their own brotherhood of Crimson Guardsmen.
Right, yes.
There are probably lines of intel and communication that exist purely within a Crimson Guard network and is exclusive to Crimson Guardsmen and does not get communicated to the rest of the Cobra organization. Because they knew that something was up, and so they were going to side with Serpentor to try and eliminate this usurper. When that didn't work out, and very pointedly at the edge of Zartan's arrow to Serpentor's eye, then I guess they kind of bided their time and jumped on the opportunity to side with the true Cobra Commander, about 20 issues later.
Yeah. Interesting commentary there, as always. SJub7 raises the bar on this show, but yeah, fantastic, good stuff. Enjoyed hearing that and about the Crimson Guardsman. Hopefully you can educate me next week with more toy talk. But right now we need to confuse some people because it's time for Commonwealth colloquialisms, aka over egg in the pudding. We got a pudding, we got a pudding, we're gonna over egg that pudding. Ain't got no criticisms. We got some Commonwealth colloquialisms.
What you got for me this time, Chief?
Last week was an abject failure from the Chief with something that wasn't even a colloquialism. It was just a word in the English language. So this time I had one lined up, but in a preamble chat before we started recording, I was talking about some recording equipment and realised that one of the words I was using was actually a British colloquialism, and that is muff. And so
the imagination races as to what meaning
so
that
muff
word has.
would In the context of our conversation, I hasten to add, we were not talking about a colloquialism version. I was talking about the muff that goes over my microphone to kind of dampen the sound, etc. But in the UK, you would refer to, well, you know what it is, but I'll educate some of the other listeners. You would refer to some lady bits as muff.
And further to that, I mean, isn't there a synonym for the cops? The fuzzy muff?
The fuzzy muff, yeah.
Yeah. Or the fuzz,
Yeah,
I suppose.
the fuzz, yep. That's it. There you go.
Bam.
Anyway, swiftly moving on. What have you got for us, sir?
Well, the Aussie colloquialism I'm going to use today was something that my wife brought up on the phone to some doctors in the emergency department. Someone had come off their bike and they were wearing the Queensland safety gear, which was a t-shirt, shorts, and a pair of thongs. Okay. What is a thong in Aussie slang?
A t-shirt? What was it? A t-shirt?
T-shirt, shorts, and a pair of thongs.
So you've got the top covered, we've got the bottom covered. So thongs, I'm guessing, are kind of like flip-flops or sandals.
Jeez. Chalk one up for the chief.
Okay, got one.
Yeah, buddy.
That was only by process of elimination.
Would call your flip-flops are thongs, which is, it's an epicenter of much hilarity.
Yeah.
When you've been told, we're going to the beach, make sure you pack your thongs. It's like, okay. What kind of beach are we going to?
Yeah, right.
The South African colloquialism is something that, oh man, I wish I knew the origin of this. It really stumps me. But if I was to say to you, chips, it would not be in reference to something you eat.
Okay, chips.
It's a verb.
Yes.
And what would, if I was to say chips, what would it have you doing?
Chips. Oof. I am stumped, my friend.
Buddy, that's why we have this section. If I was to say chips, it would mean get out of the way.
Okay.
Yeah. Typically, you would say it 3 times for emphasis.
What, just
so
chips,
like, chips.
Okay.
Or chips, my brew. So, yeah, I mean, if you're sort of looking down a blind corner in the car and your passenger's leaning forward and you're like, chips, my brew?
Right.
Like just sit back so I can see if there are any oncoming cars on the side street.
I like that one.
Yeah,
I might try and use
context.
that. I might try and use that.
Good luck.
Confuse
And they'll be
the
like,
heck out
"What?
of people.
Crisps.
Yeah, right. Good stuff. I think I fared a little bit better than last week. Always a couple of crackers from you, as always. And now it is time for... We ask you a question. We ask you a question. What will you say? What will you do when we ask listeners a question? I actually never remember what the proper words for that are, so I was kind of winging it again.
Chiefy, you're the freestyler. Fuck the microphone.
The question we asked you, the listeners, was, of all the pop culture starfighters out there, with a little caveat of a max 3 crew, what is your favourite? So, favourite starfighters across the world of pop culture with a max 3 crew. So, first, I'm just going to jump to the Twitter, and Pocket Epiphany sent us a gif of Poe Dameron in his X-Wing, whatever version of X-Wing that is from that movie.
Say what you will about the sequels, man, but they have some incredible space battles.
Yeah.
And seeing the X-Wings handling in an atmosphere, like at wave top level, man,
that's the one. That's the
that was in the
GIF,
trailer, wasn't it?
It
that
was.
was
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that got my blood pumping.
Is this is a version of the T-65 Incom X-Wing Starfighter?
Yeah,
That was the original, I think.
the T-70 is what they use in The Force Awakens and on, I think.
Right.
It's got that wicked cool, like really slender S-foil design.
Yeah, it looks like the bottom wings are set forward a little bit as well, as opposed to the top.
So that they mesh.
Yeah.
When they come together, they mesh into one surface as opposed to 2 wings, basically creating this really thick airfoil. I guess it just makes it better for handling in the atmosphere.
It looks
which
cool.
means nothing once you split them anyway.
Yeah, colour scheme is nice as well. I quite like that sleekness. Over on Instagram, Cavball Customs said X-Wing, probably due to its impact on my childhood, but the ARC 170 from the Clone Wars era looks way cooler in my opinion.
That's why I set the occupancy to 3. We had this talk, didn't we, Chief? And I was like, the ARC fighter from Clone Wars has 3 crew and an astromech, so does that make it 4? Anyway, it's a hell of an interesting design.
Yeah.
I always thought that those ships kind of, whereas the kind of the original trilogy ships were all very like function over form.
Yes.
The Clone Wars stuff still had like a bit of design panache and flair.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the elements of those ships that kind of have a bird of prey like beak to them, which is an unnecessary design flair, in terms of function. But yeah, man, they're gorgeous.
Yeah,
I just always thought like the cannons are set so far apart. You got these massive wing pylons with these big guns, but the smaller craft must be able to slip right in between that firing.
Right. I got some homework for you. Over on the Outer Timers, me and Ben are doing a Clone Wars animated rewatch. So that's probably going to drop maybe next week, I think. And that'll be maybe a twice weekly kind of a 15-minute show where we just rewatch a couple of episodes. We're going to do it in chronological order. Go to the Star Wars official website and it will, rather than just season 1, season 2, season 3, there's a list for chronological order. So now they're all available on Disney Plus. Should be more.
Well, if you guys are doing it, it must be good. But I must say, like the first few episodes that I watched, I was like, it's not my jam.
Yeah, a lot of the talk was always you just make it through season 1 and then you'll hit the good stuff. I mean, you never want to have to invest that much time in something that you have to air quote get through to get to the good stuff. So I don't know. I don't like episodes 1, 2 and 3 of the movies, but this is a vastly better version of the Clone Wars era in my opinion. Anyway, let's move on. Phil from Canada. Phil, my man Phil. Love Phil. He says TIE Fighter, that throaty sound design they have in the films are brilliant, plus they share a similar body shape to my own. Interesting.
Nice,
and Hillbilly Harper says Slave 1.
Ooh. Yeah, I suppose it operates with 1 crew, but Starfighter? I mean, a Y-Wing could run rings around a Slave 1.
Yeah.
Not
Would you say Slave 1 was more of a kind of a custom not freighter, but kind of a custom build for Fett rather than a production line Starfighter?
I think its origin was in law enforcement.
Okay.
What was it? A fire spray from Kuyat? No, I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyways, like it sort of has a bit of a hold, so it could take captives, and which made it the perfect vehicle for a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
But yeah, he definitely souped it up. I mean, the weapon systems that you see on display in episode 2 are abundant. He's got a lot of hidden weaponry, sort of pop-out guns and missile launchers and mine dispensers, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but definitely the TIE Fighter from Phil. That TIE Fighter is a great design. And over on...
Which one are we talking about? Are we talking about the...
Well, yeah, over on that was just a straightforward TIE Fighter, I think, but just classic. Okay. Over on the Facebook, Michael also said TIE Fighter. He gave it another vote. And Matt Smudger said Darth Vader's TIE Fighter.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I think Matt has a bit more of an eye on self-preservation. Because, I mean, the classic TIE doesn't have hyperdrive and it doesn't have shields. The TIE X1, which is the TIE Advanced, Darth Vader's, has both of those. Yes. Which is exactly how he managed to survive his ordeal.
Correct. And then, obviously, you've got, I don't know if anyone mentioned it, but TIE Interceptor would be next one, I guess. And
so cool.
That is a good-looking ship. I started playing the X-Wing miniatures game a few years ago, and I bought a lot of miniatures for that. It's a tabletop game. It was really, really good, and I ended up selling them, but I'd like to reinvest and start playing again. And in that, there were, I think, a lot of ties from the expanded universe and stuff. So I don't know all the names of them. There's one that's got kind of like three pylon wings coming off of it.
I think that'd be the TIE Defender.
That's it, the TIE Defender,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that comes from the TIE Fighter video game from
Right.
LucasArts in the 90s.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, that is a good line of
I
vehicles.
wasted away a lot of hours to those games. X-Wing, TIE Fighter.
Emmett says the VF-1 Valkyrie.
Oh, yes.
I don't know.
Tomcats in space.
What is it? I don't know what that is.
So, Macross, or Robotech,
Oh, okay, yeah.
the VF-1 is the kind of the superstar ship
Right.
of that series. It transforms. It has 3 modes. It's got the sort of space superiority fighter armed with a gun pod, missiles, and I suppose little sort of head cannons. And then the robot mode, or Batroid mode, I think. And then the sort of the hybrid mode between the two. Sort of half robots, half jet. It's basically a jet with legs and arms.
Okay.
Which handles more like a helicopter than a jet.
That sounds interesting.
Cool. Very cool. Love that ship. I'm surprised that it's not a show that you're familiar with, Chief.
Yeah.
Kind of is your era.
Yeah, it is. But as we've been finding over the last few weeks that I have not really consumed as much retro pop culture as I thought I did as a kid or as an adult. So I am a lot of this show now. I like it because it's a learning curve for me. I'm exposing my flaws of knowledge, and it's good because I'm, filling those gaps. I like it.
Chiefy, there are only so many hours in the day, man.
Yeah. Mike also says Independence Day Resurgence also has some decent fighters.
Yeah, I meant to do the research. They kind of look like YF-23s.
Okay.
Which was the design that didn't make it into production. So you know the F-22 Raptor?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, man. So the YF-23 just chops off 2 of the tail planes,
Okay.
and it's a lot flatter. And I think also, didn't the Resurgence take on the F-35 Lightning? Basically, it makes spaceships out of our current premier fighters.
Got it.
I say our, it's really just used by the United States and very, very wealthy neighbors.
Yeah.
Of which I think maybe Japan is the only one.
Yeah. Actually, you've mentioned a key point there. Maybe it would have behooved me to have looked at all the responses prior to the show and also done my own research. So next time,
Mate.
I will.
Buddy, you keep looking after that Evelyn. Evelyn!
Evil Lynn,
And
yeah,
your sports
brilliant.
bet in action, man. Yeah, dude, you got a lot of plates to spin.
That's it. Doug says 1980s Viper from Galactica.
Yes.
Good.
Oh
It's a
man,
good-looking ship.
he prompted me to look at a few action sequences from the original show.
Okay.
Much as I love the remake, and much as it's got critical acclaim, I do love the model work in the classics.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they got a lot of mileage out of the same shots, and they must have, because that stuff was budget burners.
But it still holds
But
up
the
well.
guy, it's beautiful. I love seeing model work in science fiction. Because particularly the era that the Battlestar Galactica remake came from, the early 2000s, the CG is too clean, it's too polished, it's too video gamey. As impressive as it is, it still looks too polished. Whereas the model work is gritty, it's filmed nicely. The man responsible for it was John Dykstra,
Okay.
whose name is synonymous with Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic to see real models, that are photographed using real cameras and lit using real lights with real shadow. Just seeing those things maneuver, seeing a real object on screen is always preferable, at least at that stage, to the CG that was available at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, Colonial Viper, fantastic craft. Jeez.
Sticking with the colonial theme, Jim says, can we squeeze the Colonial Marine dropship into that category? And I think you had replied to him saying, don't, with those ridiculous missile pods. Come on.
I think, this kind of exceeds the crew. Okay, you could fly one of those things, those dropships, with just one pilot, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's a big beast, and it's not really a starfighter. You get what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
It is a dedicated dropship for deployment of vehicles and troops.
Yeah. Bart says, how about the ship from The Last Starfighter? Now, again, if I'd have done my research, I could have pictured that. I've seen the movie, but I can't, at this moment in time, picture what that ship looks like.
Oh, man. The Last Starfighter, that had a huge impact on me as a child.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned in the thread to Bart that I used to just repeatedly try and build gun stars out of Lego. Like I had grey space Lego and bits of blue Lego, so I tried to create that design to a greater or lesser degree of success in Lego. But for instant nostalgia drop, here is the excellent main theme from The Last Starfighter.
Oh yeah, please
Bam!
do. Good stuff.
There
good
we
stuff.
go. Do you have much of a context for that film?
Yeah, I did. Like you, I watched it as a kid. Probably not as much as some other sci-fi stuff, but yeah, it was not a regular staple, but definitely something that I did watch quite a bit. Yeah.
Oh, it gave me hope that there was a career for me if I just played enough video games.
Chris is another vote for X-Wing. Mike says the last one, of course.
That's in reference to The Last Starfighter.
Okay.
So the question read, what is your favorite Starfighter? He's like, the last one.
Of course, yeah.
Hey, man.
Very good, very good.
Let's ramp up that theme one more time.
So Jim comes back with another option, and his is the Vic Viper from Gradius. It's pretty iconic. And he's put a nice picture of... I played Gradius quite a bit, and it's quite a flat ship, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh man, it's a beautiful design. I did a bit of research on that myself, which also included watching a playthrough of the original Nintendo Gradius.
Oh wow.
Oh my goodness, man.
That's tough. All those shooters
side-scrolling
were so tough.
shooters, impossible.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yep.
I do not have the reflexes for that stuff.
Yeah. Jim also gives us the R-Type R9 Arrowhead ship.
It's a chunky beast, eh?
It's a chunky
Very much
beast.
like the Last Starfighter.
Yeah, it
a lot of
looks-
junk in the trunk.
Yeah, and it looks almost like it's kind of a head with legs and a tail. It's a bit of a weird design. And then Pete pops up and he says another vote for X-Wing, and I know partially the reason for that is because he was an extra as an X-Wing pilot in the recent Star Wars movies. So,
Outstanding, man.
Yeah,
Got
good
to
work.
wear the uniform and
got
everything.
to wear the uniform,
Cool.
and I think he appears for a split second in one of the scenes. So that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, what about yourself? Have you got a personal preference for any of these? Or something that wasn't mentioned?
Always going to come back to the toys, man. The toys.
Yes.
And the first time I had a nice selection of Starfighters at my fingertips was after Star Wars 3 3/4 inch action figures had come and gone, unfortunately. I missed that era completely. And I had to catch it the sort of in the resurgence in the 90s with the Star Wars Galoob Micro Machine collection.
Okay, yeah.
So I had the full set. I had Interceptors, regular TIEs, the TIE X1s. I had A-Wings, B-Wings, X-Wings, and Y-Wings. And of the lot, I think the A-Wing and the B-Wing were my favorites.
Okay.
But the B-Wing gets the slight edge because while it straddles the line between starfighter and bomber, it just has such a unique shape
Yes.
and look and configuration. I just fell in love with the uniqueness of it. And also, it got very little exposure in Jedi.
Yep.
So the mind races. It's kind of the one with the biggest question mark over it.
Yep.
And of course, it carries the biggest weapons payload. And to a kid, having more guns and missiles was always better than less, right?
That's it. I mean, listen, something's happened on this show. We both give a 6 Yojo Cola to the issue, and I am also picking the B-Wing.
Yeah!
So that was... I had that ship in the 3
The
3/4
stars are in
line,
alignment, man.
and the size of it in my hands was just ginormous, and just that gyroscopic cockpit was just like, what is going on here? This guy is never upside down. Incredible. So
Chief, I think 3 years ago found a mint in box B-Wing back in South Africa.
Yep.
Going for a song. I jumped on that with I did not hesitate.
Okay.
It was in my possession before the sun had set,
Yes.
and it was magnificent. Putting the stickers on that thing for the first time.
Oh.
My man,
That's it. That's the rush.
makes it all worthwhile.
That's it. Love
All
it.
this vintage
Love it.
toy collecting malarkey.
We'll finish the show on a high here. I'm feeling good. Hopefully the listeners are feeling good. But don't worry, we will be back next week. We're going to be covering, as I mentioned previously, issues 177 and 178 of Real American Hero. And we're going to put a question out as well. We'll get the brains racking together to think of a good one. Thank you for the responses. Quick couple of shout-outs. Mate Mylar sent us a nice message on the Instagram saying he's loving the podcast and looking forward to the G.I. Joe board game when I finally get around to designing that. Loving his work. Please go and check out. I think he's got a Patreon. Go and have a look. Fantastic toy photography. I am no expert on toy photography at all, but what I see from this man is fantastic work. And if this is the standard, then he's the man to be on the lookout for. And Sam Myers dropped us a line via email. Always good to get correspondence from Sam. Sent us his thoughts on the Iron Grenadiers, which was nice. So yeah, it's been, apart from me dragging the show down and having a bad day, I'm buoyed by the community and the people that are getting in contact, and it's a good time. Even with the lockdown in the world we're in, there's still time to find ways to release and enjoy and be with friends and family and stuff. So you can get us in all the usual...
Chiefy, I'm going to put it on record, buddy, that if there's any way I can facilitate the G.I. Joe tabletop game,
Okay.
let me do it. Let me add it. Yeah. Man. Character bios, stats, what we're talking about. I don't know much about DMing or whatever you'd call it, but I can talk to people in the know, and they can perhaps give me some pointers.
Right. Well, you're involved in the project, my friend. So add that as some homework for you. But yes, we'll get the heads cracking and we'll come up with something. But you're the man I'm coming to for, like you said, bios, stats, information, and kind of accurate things around G.I. Joe, which are probably out of my purview. But yes, you're involved now. Well done for that, sir. You can get a hold of either of us on the usual places. That's talking_Joe on Twitter, Talking Joe Comics on Instagram, talkingjoecomics@gmail.com if you want to send us an email, or Talking Joe, a G.I. Joe podcast on Facebook. Where can the fine people check you out, sir?
Check me out. Well, the easiest way, as always, is just to search G.I. Joburg. That's Gijoburg on any of the socials. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. We have a podcast. Don't need to hype that in any way, shape, or form. Either you know about it and you love it, or you think that we're a bunch of talking heads and we have nothing useful to add or conject.
No.
We can find us on YouTube. We do occasional video reviews and film ourselves playing with toys.
Oh yeah, what happened? I missed it. It was out of my time zone. I haven't had a chance to check it out. On the 4th, there was a big release.
Oh, right. Well, we've now taken to publishing the works of other content creators on our platform. So, inspired by our kind of play motion style videos, we've got some close allies who produce their own ones. And this was a contribution by a guy called Troy Smith, who's a father of 4, and is he a father of 4? No, a father of 3. Wait, no, 4. He's got 3 girls and 1 boy.
Okay.
Heaven help him. And him and his kids produce incredible, toy videos, which he then edits and then adds voiceover and music. He features the voice talents on this one of Joe Slepsky, who has the Joe on Joe pod, Hooded Cobra Commander 788, who obviously has the Hooded Cobra Commander review channel on YouTube. It's an all-star affair, so it's great fun, man. If you want to check it out, check out the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I need to check out that because I think it was premiering. It would have been 11 p.m. UK time, which was obviously
way past Chief's bedtime.
Chief was snuggled up in the bed. But
speaking of which, thanks to daylight savings, we're pushing this real late. You better get out of here, Chief.
Yeah, it's 10:20. My missus is going to be... She's fine, but what happens is when I come down out of the loft, because it's a concertina metal loft ladder, this bastard creaks and groans and just wakes up everyone in the house. Fortunately, not the kid, but the missus just scowls and has a go at me. But yeah, if you wanna, I'll stick around for another 30 seconds. If you want to get hold of me or look at what I'm doing, I've got the other podcast, The Outer Timers, which is just the Outer Timers. You can find us on all the usual places. And that's the other thing I need to do. Good reminder. On my own personal Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, I'm doing the daily strips which chronicle the birth of my kid from 4 years ago, which I found on the computer. I'd taken them at the time. And that is on Chiefy 2 Shoes. That's Chief Y number 2 shoes, Chiefy 2 Shoes. And I need to put up today's strip, which I haven't done yet.
Bad Chief.
That's it. So, with all that said and done, we will see you down the road.
Yo, Joe!